All right, so we have our latest absurdity, and it's Aaron Rodgers to the 49ers rumors. I'm going to shut it down right now. It would be absolutely idiotic for the 49ers to even consider that. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 42 next December. He's already a mediocre quarterback now. Just think about it. The Jets had a top 5 defense, and they were saying, all we need is the QB. I remember talking to Robert Saleh at the owners' meetings over in Phoenix a couple years ago. All we need is the QB. Well, the QB came in and the QB didn't even perform at a top 15 level, and the Jets fell apart. I mean, come on, let go of it. The media wants to hop onto every one of these sexy narratives when you talk about name power. This one doesn't make any sense. Other ones make sense. Myles Garrett makes sense, and I think to an extent, Davante Adams makes sense. I don't think that Davante and Aaron are necessarily a package deal, but Davante Adams, listen, the 49ers need a receiver. Right? The 49ers are going to need to bridge the gap potentially if Brandon Ayuk is not available for the first part of the season. But even if he is, you're going to want to stack that receiver room. We saw the danger of receiver injuries this past season for the 49ers. It was brutal. They were last in the NFL in average separation at the time of catch or incompletion. So the receiving core was decimated. Obviously, Ayuk was hurt. Christian McCaffrey is part of that receiving core. That was all part of that really ugly statistic. You've got to make things easier for Brock Purdy, who, by the way, is significantly better than Aaron Rodgers. Let's make that clear. One more time, I'm going to circle back to this because it's so stupid. But you don't replace a quarterback with a downgrade, especially if that downgrade would be more expensive. Aaron Rodgers, again, he's going to be 42 years old. The amount of money that you have to pay him at this point in his career, you couldn't really backload it in any significant way. This wouldn't be a long-term deal that would be sustainable for a team. Brock Purdy, right now, in his mid-20s, even with an NFL record deal, would be cheaper on the cap than Aaron Rodgers for the 49ers. Just wrap that around your head. And the fact that Brock Purdy is a better QB than Aaron Rodgers, well, that's the slam dunk. But we're talking about weapons, and we're talking about how the 49ers can make this sustainable within the context of their salary cap and the context of their team. If Davante Adams wants to go ring chasing, I think that's the scenario in which this could work for the 49ers. Why don't we take a little bit of a walk here while we talk about the potential of ring chasing for the 49ers and also the potential of, I think, receivers that might be a little bit cheaper than Davante Adams. Take a look out that direction. That's where we can see Mount Whitney. I want to show Mount Whitney because that is the highest peak in the 48 states. The last time the 49ers won a Super Bowl, Steve Young likened it to climbing Everest. Everest is obviously the tallest peak in the world. We'll have to settle for the view of the tallest peak in the 48 states right now, Mount Whitney. The 49ers are trying to climb. They're trying to reach the summit. So you've got to find the right pieces to make that possible. Davante Adams will be great. He'd be a better fit than Deebo Samuel for this football team. We've talked about the fact that Deebo and his bulldozing style isn't quite what the 49ers need right now offensively. Purdy has changed the game for them as far as what they're looking for at the receiver position. So Davante, great. Yeah, he's going to be 33 years old next year. Former All-Pro, still delivering. I think he had 800 receiving yards with Aaron Rodgers and the Jets this past season. But just like Rodgers, this is a guy at the tail end of his career for whom, yeah, you could prorate the cap hits into void years, but it wouldn't really be a worthwhile investment in that regard because if he retires soon, if he's not with your team for all too long, that money is not very efficient hitting the cap in the near term. So I think that he would have to be a true ring chaser for the 49ers to consider bringing him aboard if the Jets do cut him. And it looks like the contract, which is worth like $38 million base salary this year, I don't think it's going to be worth it for the Jets. He's not a $38 million receiver. So I think they cut him rather than trade him. Davante would have to take some sort of discount for the 49ers to consider that. And maybe he would take a hometown discount. He's from East Palo Alto. He went to Fresno State. He supposedly has expressed interest in playing for the 49ers and the two LA teams. You've got to be all ears because Davante Adams is a quality separator, quality receiver, even at an advanced age. But here are two names that I think might make much more sense, assuming that Davante Adams is not willing to take that discount. Darius Slayton of the New York Giants. He's about a $6.5 million APY guy. Somebody who's going to give you about 50 catches a year. Somebody that could bridge the gap between the 49ers not having Brandon Ayuk and having Brandon Ayuk at the start of the season, and even when they do get Ayuk back, somebody who could give San Francisco that receiving depth in quality veteran stature that they needed so badly last year when they weren't separating. Darius Slayton is a 4.3, 4.4 40 guy. 6'1 receiver, awesome broad jump when he came out of college, awesome explosive metrics, not as much short area quickness. The 3-cone isn't great for Darius Slayton, but he's great on the straight line explosion. By the way, on the straight line, when we talk about Mount Whitney, it's 66 miles from here. 66 miles across the Sierra Nevada, straight to Mount Whitney. Darius Slayton could help the 49ers climb that summit. Then you look at somebody like Elijah Moore, who was with the Jets but was traded to the Browns. He might make about as much as Darius Slayton. I would say it's a $5 to $7 million receiver. Elijah Moore is the opposite of Slayton, though. He is more geared toward the short area quickness. So it's the elite 3-cone drill, not as much the straight line speed for somebody like Elijah Moore, but he's 5'9", 5'10", so he's more of a slot receiver. You could even talk about both of these guys, but I think in all realism, the 49ers would only pick one of them, and they could only really realistically fit one of them into their larger team building structure. But you would have a mid-tier wide receiver, a veteran who you could trust, somebody who could help fill that kind of that awkward role that you need filled for the 49ers with Ayuk indefinitely out for the start of the season. I'm assuming, we don't know for sure, but I'm assuming that's going to be the case. And you'd have your pick, if you're looking at Slayton or Elijah Moore, of someone who's either straight line fast or short area fast, depending on where you want to plug them in. Slot receivers, you're talking about short area quickness. Outside receivers, you want that burner speed. And hey, maybe the 49ers feel that they really need some burner speed to create the separation that they did not create last season. But those are the types of moves, like I was texting with Mike a little bit earlier, these are the types of moves that Mike says he really hopes he sees the 49ers make, because he doesn't think the 49ers are going to be huge spenders this offseason. I think San Francisco, obviously Brock Purdy is going to be a big investment, but I think when you talk about the free agents they can bring in, especially if this pursuit of Myles Garrett turns into a thing and that starts costing the 49ers some money, they're going to have to find ways to improve on a budget. And the biggest deficiency offensively was that lack of separation for San Francisco. It definitely wasn't quarterback, where Brock Purdy was number 7 QBR in the game. I don't think that, I think running back's going to be much healthier this year. And I think the pass protection, we could talk so much about the 49ers improving that with just one position, with just center, to be the rising tide that lifts all boats. So you go back to the separation aspect, and for that, you build as robust of a receiving room as possible. You try to do it on that budget. You try to do it in a smart way. Elijah Moore, Darius Slayton, those are the names I'm looking at. You know who I'm not looking at? Aaron Rodgers. I'll consider Davante Adams, but I am not looking at Aaron Rodgers. Why don't we let go of that idiotic, I can't even call it a fantasy, because it's such a stupid idea. It just really would make the 49ers worse, and it's just something for people to sit on social media or TV and get some free, cheap views. But these aren't, I mean, you could get a free view here. It's better than a free, cheap click. This is the free view that you want. This is a free, expensive view, though. 49ers trying to climb the top of that mountain range. They're trying to climb Mount Whitney. And they're not going to do it if they pick up Aaron Rodgers. So don't worry. Rodgers is not coming aboard. But maybe Darius Slayton or somebody like Elijah Moore will come aboard. We'll talk to you guys soon.